We can teach SEL when we teach math, chemistry, or even sports. This is what my program focus on, where we combine physical education and SEL because, again, as I said earlier, we can teach social skills when we play sports and when we do everything. The thing is just to get connected to the kids and to do something they like and they love, and then it's easier to guide them and teach them. Hello, everyone. My name is Tomer Kamil. I'm a sport therapist, and you are watching another episode of Jumping Forward SEL podcast. And today we have a special guest. I'm really excited to talk to her, Jennifer Schmidt. Hey, Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So Jennifer is a special education teacher at Beverly High School, Ohio. She has 27 years of experience in various settings, and now also she teaches at college level. Jennifer has spoken nationally about the topic of autism and SEL, and she's the author of 3 books. Wow, Jennifer, you have so much experience and you experience so many things. So I'm really excited to hear about your experience, about your knowledge. So, how are you today?
I'm good. Yes, I popped on after a day in my classroom. I think that's one of the things I love about being on podcasts and webinars is that I was just teaching today. So it's very fresh, fresh in my mind.
Yes. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the SEL program you developed and about your books?
Sure, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, this is my 27th year in the classroom. That seems crazy to me. My
Yeah.
younger daughter is actually her last day of high school is this week, so I'll be sad I think on Friday to see her go. But the SEL program that I developed is really centered around students with autism. And in particular, we were finding some students kind of falling through the cracks. I feel like here in Ohio, and I think in the United States, we have a lot of programming for our students that would be considered more moderate to severe on the spectrum. But our students that are more mildly affected, the students that are in general to advanced settings, so academically are pretty high, they were not receiving the same services. And so we're finding these really intelligent students who definitely could go on to college or post secondary, not having the social skills or the executive functioning skills to do that successfully. So I kind of fell in love with this population when I was in North Carolina. I lived in, I taught in Chapel Hill and I lived in Durham. And in that area, it's Research Triangle Park, it's Duke University, North Carolina University or UNC. And so you're seeing all of these really intelligent people having children. And some of those children are also highly intelligent and also on the spectrum, so twice exceptional. And we were just noticing that there was a lot of miscommunication. They weren't sure how to have relationships. And so I just have always thought like, that's such an important part of life to be able to connect with other human beings. And, you and I have talked that both of us worked very hard to get through school academically. And so, I think that I was able to get through school academically because my social skills were so good. I would be like, I want to be in your group. And I think I told you I kind of schmoozed the nuns. They would stay after school and tutor me because, they thought, oh, she's really trying. Let's help her. So I always felt like that came naturally to me, but the academic piece was a little more challenging. So what was interesting to me were these really academically gifted students that were struggling with something that I found pretty easy. And so I think that's what drew me to this population. And I thought, I could teach them that. Like I could teach them some skills that would help them. People lose their jobs because they don't get along with other people. They're not team players. And so those are all social skills that we have to teach. Those do not come naturally to everybody. And then typically, if they don't come naturally to a student, maybe their parents struggle with it a little bit too. So maybe they're not seeing it modeled at home either. So then that's kind of like a double whammy. Not always, but sometimes. So yeah, I think that's what drew me to this population. And I started looking. I'm kind of a nerd. I like to look at research, and I started looking at what are the things that help people to generalize social skills. And one of the major ones was using peers. So the peer mediated instruction and intervention is an evidence-based practice in the field of autism. And so basically what that means is just using peers to teach social skills. And so all of my books are centered around that. How do we use peers and other evidence-based practice in order to teach social skills to students with autism? So half of my class are what I call targeted students, typically on the spectrum, mildly affected. And then also the other half are what I call peer coaches. So students that I've trained in the summer about the characteristics of autism and how to be a good coach. My students don't need helpers, they need coaches. And there's a big difference, right? And so I think it helps maintain dignity. And over time, the students become such good friends, which is like a beautiful byproduct of the course. So I call it PEERSPECTIVE. My website is PEERSPECTIVELearningapproach.com. And my first book is called Why Didn't They Just Say That? Now published by Future Horizons. And this book walks you through, it explains the evidence-based practices in the front of the book. And then in the back of the book, it actually shows you the curriculum. So it has different types of lessons, communication skills and relationships and self-awareness. And so teaching all of that social emotional learning that a lot of times our students with autism sometimes doesn't come naturally to them, or they just need it intentionally taught. And then the second book is a middle school book that I wrote with Megan Rollins. She's an amazing co-author, and she started the middle school class here in Beaver Creek. And so same sort of setup. This one has a ton of really great lessons that Megan has used in her classroom that we developed some of them together. Some of them she developed on her own. She's a fabulous teacher. And then I'm very proud of our new book. This is written with my co-author, Sarah Anderson. And this book promotes learning about others. And in particular, this one is on autism and learning how to be a friend. So creating empathy and awareness. And then hopefully that would promote kindness towards others. The thing I love about this book is we have some rhyming sections in it, but then we also have a teaching section and some questions that people can use to discuss with their own child, or you can use it in classrooms. So we're very, very proud of this. And the intent is to write a series. So it would be a different exceptionality or disability. Maybe my next one will be dyslexia or physical disabilities. I just watched the movie Wonder. Have you ever seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's talking about a young man who has different.
Oh, yeah, I've seen it with the helmet. Yeah, yes.
Yes. So I was just thinking to myself how important it is to help teach students that are curious about other peers that are different than them, and how to teach them that it's okay to ask questions and to be curious, and that we're not all the same. Because even in that movie, the other students are trying to stay away from him because he's different, instead of us just explaining why he's different. And over time in the movie, they become friends because they get to know him. So that's sort of my mission, is helping people to be more kind and empathetic, to get to know people that are different than them, and hopefully to help some of these amazing students with autism find success in school, in the workforce, and with relationships in general.
So, and because you mentioned the movie, so in the movie, the parents encourage the kid, and then they support him, and he wants to wear the helmet, so they don't avoid him and say, and they understand the situation, and they do a tremendous job. So the question is, if you guide teachers, because most of the teachers, I believe, don't act this way. So if you work with teachers and with parents and guide the parents too.
A lot of times we do parent meetings and we talk to them about what we're teaching in class so they can reinforce it at home. We're really blessed in our district. Our parents are really plugged in and almost always so supportive. And so I think it's a huge piece of the puzzle to include the parents in on this. And while I do think that a lot of these things are taught in the home, I know as a mom myself that our children don't always listen to what we're teaching them. And sometimes hearing it in that classroom setting, especially if you're on the spectrum and that's like a class and there's a grade, kind of associated with it, might be a little more buy-in. But we even just recently took students to prom. So I have to have parent support for that because they go to dinner first, they take pictures, they have to have a certain outfit. So yeah, I think including the parents is huge, and just a big piece of using the same terminology and reinforcing things even after they're out of the class, reminding them to use their thought bubble, and to use a social smile. Those types of things are super helpful.
Can you talk about the prom? I was planning to talk about it later, but since you mentioned it now, because I think it's a huge thing, because you need to think about all the small details about what to wear, about when they eat, or maybe to tell them about how the restaurant looks like in advance. Usually clothes are not really comfortable, and when they go to the
Right.
club, so the music is loud and the lights. So I need to, and each student something else can bother him. So we need to think about everything. So how do you do it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the first book does have a whole unit on social etiquette and school dances. I tell One time a student said to me, "Well, why do I have to know this? I mean, adults don't go to prom." And I thought that is such a valid question. I can't tell you how often I'm like, that is a very good question. And, we may not as adults go to prom unless you're me and you chaperone for many years. But we have Christmas parties, or we have different things that we do have to go to that are a little bit outside our social comfort zone, right? So I mean, we really intentionally teach all of the things you need to know for prom. So we do a dining etiquette lesson. We talk about what is the expected clothing. My friend Brenda Smith Miles, she has some amazing stuff out about the unwritten social rules, right? The hidden curriculum of things. And so in prom, there's a lot of hidden curriculum, and the thing that's tricky about social skills is somebody once said, well, why don't they just look it up? Why don't they just Google it? Well, that's fine, but you're going to get an answer from one person, and that's one data point. And social skills are different depending on the environment that you're in, depending even on the state or country that you're in. And so all of that, it's not the best way to learn. So talking about, the unwritten social rule that yes, prom is a dance, but you're more than welcome to go and never dance. You can go walk around, talk to your friends, get some juice, punch or whatever, and, sit at a table. We do actually do a dance lesson because I want to make sure that my students know that they could be a part of that if they wanted to be.
Yeah.
Um, and by no means are we trying to, make our students the star of the prom with their dance moves. We're just trying to help them feel comfortable. It sounds like I watch a lot of movies, but I do use film a lot to teach things, and I use a clip from the movie Hitch. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you know how he's teaching him some things before they go to a dance, and he says, like, keep your arms at 90 degrees and keep it at home. So we do talk about that, because what is unexpected when somebody's dancing is if their movements are too big. It can draw attention to you. And not everybody can get away with like the grocery cart move, right? Like that's not something that just anybody can pull off. So we do talk about that, and we talk about, slow dancing. So we all practice that in my classroom, and we have a prom checklist. This is what you have to do before and during and after, and all of those things are super important. And then we're very lucky because another school near us did a mock prom. I think I told you a little bit about that. And they invited us to come to their career center, which is like a technical school, where they're teaching trades. And we had the privilege of joining them 2 years in a row. So when we get there, the girls get their hair, or whoever wants to, really. I had a young man get his hair cut this year. They go to cosmetology and get their hair done so that they're ready for the prom and they're feeling well groomed. And we made, in natural resources, we made corsages. We had digital media taking our pictures. And then we went to culinary and had a meal together before prom. And then we went in and practiced. So I think it's really helpful when you can help students to understand that our brains typically do not like when we're doing something we've never done before. If we can't picture it, it's hard to obviously know what's coming, right? And so having them have this mock prom where they could try it first before the actual prom was very helpful. And a lot of my students said they liked the mock prom better than the actual prom. So yeah, I think that's a great culminating activity for us. It's like the height of a social event for our seniors. So it's cool for them to be able to look back and think, I was a part of that. I pushed myself to try that. And I do tell them, you don't have to stay the whole time. Like, most people don't stay the whole time. But if you think in a very black and white way, and the prom is from 7 to 10, you might think you have to be there the whole time. That's another unwritten rule, right? They don't say on the ticket, feel free to leave when you want to. So yeah, it was a great experience. I think the students did awesome this year and they seemed to really enjoy themselves. A couple of the students were like, when are we taking this group picture? Because I'm about, my social battery is run down now. And I said, absolutely, we'll take it soon. So it was really cool.
I think it's extremely important because I remember that during my freshman year, I took a professional development class, and they took us to a restaurant, and they explained to us, when you go to a job interview, sometimes it happens at the restaurant. So they taught us what to order and how to sit, and not to put salt before you taste the food. And I still remember this class. So I think it's great that they experience it at this young age. So wow.
Well, we're starting our job skills and interviewing, and I pulled back in. Remember when we had the dining etiquette lesson? My husband does a lot of hiring for his company, and one of the
Yeah.
things that they always do is take them out for a meal because they're
Yeah.
going to be doing that on the job. So they need to see, that's a real turnoff to some people if you have poor table manners. Or I just accidentally interrupted you, but if you're interrupting people constantly or talking over them, if you're, as you mentioned, salting your food before you even try it, just little things like that can leave people with a uneasy feeling about you, and then they're probably not going to want to hire you. So
Yeah.
those are all super important, some people call soft skills, that I think are vitally important in your success.
I have another question. So, what is social emotional learning exactly? Because I see a lot of parents online that are against SEL. I see there is a tendency that a lot of parents are against it. And I think the reason is that they don't understand exactly what SEL is. Some of them think that we are going to, brainwash their kids and try to affect them negatively. So, what is it exactly?
Well, it's really an interesting question because when you think about social emotional learning, you're teaching students how to regulate emotions, how to process things that they're going through, and how to interact with other people, right? And so to me it seems really strange that anybody would be against that, because when we look at people that are healthy and happy people, they have those skills. Those skills are vital. And I think it's interesting because if you don't have skills to regulate your emotions and, talk through your feelings and communicate, typically you're going to start coping with that in some way. And often it's not a positive way. You find people that are drinking too much, or seeking out relationships that aren't good. So I think social emotional learning should be like really the groundwork that we're having with students, and teaching them how powerful their brains are, and how we think and how we process information. And really, when you look at people that are happy, they have really strong connections with other people and they take good care of themselves. And so social emotional learning is just the absolute groundwork for that. When you asked me to come on here and you told me that was the topic, I was like, yes, because I'm really passionate in how important it is for us to teach those skills. And even if a parent is doing a good job at home teaching those skills, there's still more work to be done. And really, I think a lot of my colleagues, when we first started saying that we're going to teach this in our homeroom or AVP class, I was hearing, well, it's one more thing. But it's really not one more thing because you can embed it into almost any subject, right? I mean, social emotional learning is all over the place. I mean, even if you're in a chemistry class, you should be teaching how to respectfully disagree with somebody. You know, that your partner gets a different answer than you. How do you respectfully say, I think you're wrong? And you're going to need that skill in work. How often do you have to say, you know, oh, that's funny. I think I saw that a different way. I was thinking this versus you're wrong and I'm right. And this is how you do it, you know? So I think that we underestimate the value of these skills and not just how they're going to make people more successful, which they will, but also how they're going to add value to their life because they're going to have better relationships and friendships. And, you know, again, that all ties back to the happiness piece. The other thing that I was thinking as you were asking that question was when I talk to students about social skills, I talk to them about specifically the expected behavior. In other words, what will most people be doing? And then they can make the choice if that's what they want to do or not, right? But a lot of my students on the spectrum, they don't know what the expected behavior is.
Yeah.
So they're not really making the choice to, you know, so I think that's a kind of a gray area as well, where, you know, of course we don't all need to fall in line and do things this way, but I do think we need to know, like, what is the expected behavior? If I'm not great at reading the room and seeing what the expected behavior is, then I think that that is something that should be intentionally taught, because those are the times where you will kind of stick out. People might feel a little bit uncomfortable around you if you don't know the expected behavior. And I think that, you know, that then will make you feel uncomfortable. So, yeah, I really don't think you can over teach SEL. I think it should be embedded in every class. And I think that the more that we do that, the easier our jobs will be because our students will be able to communicate and function with others in a respectful way.
And I think that when it comes to autism, so some of the kids, they do know what they're expected to do, but they feel uncomfortable with the situation. For example,
Uh-huh.
I work with this basketball player that feels uncomfortable to talk to his classmates or to his players on the team. So it feels uncomfortable to ask for the ball. So sometimes he's wide open, but the players don't see him, and he doesn't ask for the ball. So and he feels frustrated. But he knows that he's supposed to ask for the ball, but still he feels uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
so even when they do know what they're expected to do, so they feel uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. And I think whenever you do something for the first couple times, you feel uncomfortable, right? That's not his natural personality to be like, pass me the ball. He might see it as arrogant, or maybe it adds more pressure to him and he thinks, oh gosh, what if I can't, what if I miss the shot now? I asked for the
So this is
ball,
not
you
the
know?
case. So in this situation, this is not the case. He wants the ball and he wants to shoot the ball and he feels comfortable,
Yeah.
but he feels uncomfortable to ask for the ball. So he can clap, but you know
That's what I
no
was
one
going to
hears it
say.
when they no one hears it when they play basketball because it's
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you got to have someone on the sideline saying so and so's open.
exactly, and it
Yeah,
doesn't work this way.
there's
But
got to be a workaround, right? That's funny. I was going to say he should clap, but that's not
so,
working.
so it does, but you know, it's really loud when it comes to basketball games. So everyone
Sure.
shouts, the coaches, the other players, and
Yeah.
you hear the sneakers on the floor.
Yeah.
So he does it, but still the kids don't hear it sometimes, and
Right.
it makes him really frustrated because he really wants the ball, and
Yeah. I
this is
really like this example I love this example because it's a perfect analogy that we have people on the outskirts, right? That could be valuable, major parts of whatever system that just aren't asking for the ball, right? So teaching them that it's good to ask for the ball. We want you to because you're going to add to our society. Yeah, I like that visual.
And this is exactly why I think that, as you said earlier, that we can teach SEL when we teach math, chemistry, or even sports. This is what my program focus on, where we combine physical education and SEL, because again, as I said earlier, we can teach social skills when we play sports and when we do everything. The thing is just to get connected to the kids and to do something they like and they love, and then it's easier to guide them and teach them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best kind of learning when the students don't even realize they are learning, right? Because they're having
Yes,
fun. Yeah,
yeah.
I totally.
So what have you noticed that the students enjoy the most? So when I run my program, so we do some fun exercises, and they enjoy it, and then we can stop and analyze it and discuss it. And usually the regular teachers don't have the time or the knowledge to do it.
Sure.
So what you do in order to make the students have fun? Because as we said earlier, it's easier to teach them when they enjoy themselves.
Yeah, well, so I asked my students that today because that's the thing I that keeps me in my classroom is I can just ask them the answers. And basically, they were talking about how they liked the activities that we did, and in particular, they like going on field trips. So we will be talking about, let's say in the fall, we're talking about how eye contact is important and using a social smile, how, when you're talking to someone, your shoulder should be facing them. And we talk about, small talk topics and how that can generate common interests. And then that's how you become friends. And so taking all of that knowledge that we learned in a classroom and then going to lunch together. Well, guess what you're practicing at lunch? All of those things, small talk topics, eye contact, how do you greet somebody? So, they were talking about those things. They mentioned some silly things that I have done that I didn't realize they like so much. So, last week we did a challenge. I like to do like group work and challenges a lot because most kids are very competitive. And competition, I think, really teaches a lot of valuable lessons because no matter how good you are or athletic or intelligent, you're going to lose sometimes. Like
Yeah.
there is going to be a competition that you are not going to win. So I gave them each a box of spaghetti and a bag of large marshmallows. And I set the timer for 7 minutes. And I said, build the tallest structure that you can in 7 minutes. Whoever's is the tallest, I will bring you donuts tomorrow.
Mhm.
And you couldn't use tape, you couldn't use any of those things. And it couldn't, like, if it fell over before I measured, it didn't count. And so the beauty of this is no matter how you think you're going to do this, it is not right. Like it will fall. The spaghetti breaks. The marshmallows are too squishy. Like it's like I'm setting them up for a complete disaster. But after a while, if they work together and they listen to each other, they realize that you should take 4 strands of spaghetti to make a stronger base to create. But if you spend too much time on the base, then, so it's a really cool, just simple activity. It is messy though, teachers, I will tell you that.
Mhm.
You do have to wipe the tables off after and everything, but it's just a fun way. And then we like take pictures of them and this is the winning team. And we talk about like what went well in your group and what didn't go well. And, I love how introspective students are at this age. Like they'll be like, yeah, I was totally not listening to so and so, and it was a complete disaster, and I should have listened. So, but what a great lesson. The next time that student is in a group setting, they're probably going to listen because they had that natural consequence of
Yeah.
not listening. So I think a lot of those things. Also, just board games teach all kinds of things, and super fun way to sneak in some SEL. Maybe your lesson didn't go quite as long as you thought. hey guys, you can pick a board game from the back cabinet for the last 10 minutes or something. And I actually do whole game days, and they become very elaborate. Like they're like, and I'm bringing this game. You have to check the games to make sure they're appropriate, of course. But, games are something that you can use for the rest of your life. I mean, my group of friends, we play all kinds of crazy games, card games and board games, and there's all kinds of good ones now. So I think those types of things are very low pressure and also just not that hard to plan, but also have a good payoff, and also memories and shared experiences, which bring people closer.
And how do you match the relevant program to a specific group? How do you pick the students, or you teach the entire class? If you work in small groups, how does it work exactly?
So in my PEERSPECTIVE class or communications class, I'm targeting students with autism specifically, trying to help them. And so
Mhm.
they are paired one-to-one with a peer coach. And the coach is someone I've trained over the summer. So, if there's a group of 4 kids, then 2 of them are coaches and 2 of them are on the spectrum. And that's very intentional. But they're not helping. They're all still doing the activity. They all still get a grade. But they know, like, if a student is having a hard time understanding, like, maybe figurative language, they can say, oh, I think you're thinking this, but let me explain it to you a little bit better. Or I have one student who sometimes when he's saying his opinion, it sounds like he's yelling at you, and he doesn't know it. He just gets very passionate. And so I had a coach just today say to him, we'll call him Steve, like, hey, Steve, I'm sure you don't know you're yelling at me right now, but when you raise your voice, it makes me feel uncomfortable, like you're mad at me. And, he came back with, well, I'm not mad at you. And he's like, well, then can you lower your voice? That's a really important lesson for that student to learn, because somebody
Yes.
else just wouldn't tell him and just wouldn't talk to him again. Yeah, I think the watching the coaches in action is one of my favorite things. Just seeing the difference that they can make. They learn so much more quickly, social skills from peers than they do from just me and my instruction. So they're the most important part of the class, I would say.
And the program lasts the entire year, or
Hmm.
yes?
Yeah, we teach the class the whole year. Now, I do know some other neighboring districts that have started the class, and they do it for a semester. But I
Yes.
feel like the more and the longer, the better, because you're building those strong bonds, and then you can have that final outing be prom. So if you ended it after fall, there's no like huge social event around that time.
And so what is it, around like 30 sessions, something like that?
I do think some of the students have outside therapists as well, but this is more of a actual class. We use a college level human relations curriculum.
Oh,
And so that also pulls in those more academically minded students on the spectrum that, even though I am a special education teacher, I also teach at a college level. I think that probably helps. And then
yes.
we're using that college textbook.
And what do you prefer, to teach teachers, to coach teachers, or to teach kids?
Oh man, you're good at this. That's a hard question. I don't know. I think I like aspects of both of them. I'm going to take a cop
Mm.
out answer here. I love the energy that students give me on a daily basis, but I also really love to teach pre service teachers. I love to see them start to take what we're doing in a classroom and use with students, and then come back and tell me about it and what worked and what didn't. One of the classes I teach is behavior management. So seeing them implement those types of strategies, and then, well, this didn't work, it's just really cool to see. I think my favorite part about teaching is seeing a transformation from when you first have the student to when they leave you.
Mm.
And it, may or may not be anything that I did or said, but just seeing that growth over time through experiences and just, them gaining knowledge is very rewarding.
Mhm. So, final thoughts. What is one thing that you do to keep calm when things get chaotic?
So I was reading over that question yesterday, and I think it's such an important one. I think that you've been very intentional by the questions that you've asked me. I really like this because I think that there is a very high burnout in teaching. And in particular, if you are a special educator, I know that the research would tell you that special educators typically don't stay in the field as long as I have. So I think one of the main things that I do for myself is I get up in the morning, most mornings, and exercise. And I think that sets me up for a good day. I also am very intentional about, I'm not perfect about it, but I do try to take care of my health. I try to drink a lot of water. I try to eat healthy most of the time. And I think that those things, and I sometimes do some journaling. I also think my faith is a huge part of what keeps me calm on a daily basis. So I think educators and just care providers of all kinds, we really have to be intentional about taking care of ourselves. Because I know that it's so cliche, but we truly are not going to be as good at helping others if we're not taking care of ourselves. And so for me, that means getting up very early to prepare for my day. But luckily, after 27 years, I still really enjoy coming into my classroom. Um, so yeah, I think that is probably some of the main things. I also feel like my patience with students with different special needs is I have a lot of patience for that. What I'm finding is when I teach students that don't have special needs, I'm like, get it together. I have a very low like slacker threshold. I'm like, okay, we need to work. We got to get some stuff done here. So, but overall, I would say making sure I take care of my health first allows me to be patient and calm when I'm working with my students. And see, that's something
You,
we have to teach our students too, right? Taking care of ourselves.
yes, because at your position you have to stay calm and be patient, and sometimes it can be challenging, especially at the end of the day, and you're going through something challenging, because we are all
Mm-hmm.
human beings, so yeah, so we have
Yeah,
to take care of ourselves.
absolutely.
So last question, what three things that you're grateful for today?
I'm very grateful for my husband. I think that my husband is a huge support of me. I'm a very big picture dreamer type person. And so when I say, you know what I should do is write a book, and he says, yeah, do it, I think that that is a huge benefit in my life, and just our relationship brings me a lot of joy. He's a very kind, wonderful person. My daughters bring me a lot of joy. My older daughter is a music teacher, and
Mm.
she just got a job in my district. She's moving back from Cleveland, which is about 3 hours away, to teach music here. My younger daughter is going away to college to play lacrosse next year and study accounting. So they both are just my pride and joy. I'm just so thankful for them. And I think the third thing that I'm really thankful for are just my friends. I talk a lot about how important it is to have relationships, and how I want to teach my students to put themselves out there, to have those bonds, because some of them haven't had that before. So I think communications class or PEERSPECTIVE really allows them to learn that it's worth it. It's worth it to put yourself out there. I think, as you mentioned before, we're all humans. We all have stuff. If you think that there's somebody that doesn't, it is not true. We all have our own things that we're walking through. And so I think that support system of my husband and my children and my dear friends. I have friends that I have had since high school and college, and still my very best friends. My children call them aunt and uncle, and it's just that's such a huge blessing, and such an important part of life. I would say relationships are the most important part of a fulfilling life. So I would say those are the three things I'm thankful for.
Before we finish, anything else you would like to say?
I think the main thing is I was sort of thinking about how to wrap up my life's work. You know, how do I explain to you and encompass what I'm trying to do? And I think the bottom line is just helping people to understand autism better so that they can accept these wonderful individuals, because some of them are different than us. And so taking time to get to know somebody who's different than you, I think that that is a huge blessing that you can have in their lives, but they can have in your lives too. And I think overall, just once you get to know somebody better, you can accept and embrace and show kindness. And I think that at the end of the day, I think teaching students to branch out, especially my students, right? I mean, you're talking about high school students that, you know, everybody's trying to look cool and all of these things and save face. And you know what's really cool is when you put your needs aside and you get to know somebody that's different than you, and you get to learn from them and just show kindness and pour into their lives. So I think that's the bottom line, is just showing kindness through empathy and acceptance. I think that that is the most important thing. And then it's interesting because all of that comes back to you, right? Because you learn from them.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience. I think that you're doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing, because you affect the next generation. You affect so many kids, their future. Well, I wish you luck in your next dream.
Thank you so much. You as well. And I'm really bad at publicizing, but the the books are all on Amazon. If anybody's interested, my publisher is probably like, "Really, Jen? You're not even going to tell them where to get it?" So yes, they're all on Amazon. I would love for you to check them out. High school curriculum, middle school, and now a children's book as well. And if you, I
You
believe,
post the
if you
links.
search,
I will post the links below.
thank you. See, you're much better at this than me. I just write them. I don't ever talk about. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye bye.